Tell us about your kids, kind of their ages. You coach them for a little while and maybe some of your experiences that you've gone through with them.
I have six kids, but I have four that have played sports. And the oldest one of those is our daughter Whitney, who is now 20 years old, but she did rec league softball and then ended up making her high school team. Unfortunately, it was the year that COVID hit. So right before she was supposed to play her first game, that shut that down. So she never got to get on the yard, as they say, as a high school player. But she did make the team, which was really impressive because she had never played any club ball. She'd only played a couple of seasons of fast pitch softball. Actually, through a lot of your coaching, Chad, hitting coaching and stuff, and then some of the stuff that I was able to teach her in terms of making the team, things that you would coach me on. My son Jack played rec league, little league for between spring and winter ball or fall ball, probably like a total of like 12 or 13 seasons split between those two seasons. Our daughter Addie has played a couple of seasons rec league softball, and then our son Sean, I've coached him as well in the rec league little leagues. But I remember when my oldest son first started playing baseball, he actually played one season and then didn't want to go back because there was an assistant coach. It was just a real jerk face, and he made it very. It was all about winning and getting mad at these kids if they didn't hit and everything, just yelling at kids. And he just didn't want to go back. And that's when I thought I'll step up and try coaching. And I remember Chad was like, "Hold on, buddy," before and coached me up. And it took me a couple of seasons of doing that to really learn how to, with my own son and with the other kids, manage expectations and manage feelings. Kids get out there. We were brought up in, I've joked, I don't even remember getting like a water break. And now half the time coaching is spent telling kids to hydrate. But it's been really eye opening for me to learn how to manage just my own emotional response and stuff. Chad's been super helpful with that. Whereas Chad specializes in coaching student athletes, and I'm sitting here telling him, man, you should be coaching their parents and their coaches because you've helped me regulate my own emotions and stuff. And it's very interesting when you have a guy that played at the highest level of his sport professionally who just tells, yeah, I'm not yelling throw strikes to every pitcher and move up in the box, move back in the box. That's not, and it's, man, maybe we should be listening to what the big leaguer does instead of our own instincts as parents. And now what's funny is, and I talk to Chad about this all the time, is you're at games, whether it's your own kid or your friend's kids playing, your coach and whatever it is. And I'm sure you have this same experience, Ron, is you start paying attention to the way other people are acting at the field. My first thing is sometimes I'm like so embarrassed because I'm like, oh, I used to act like that. And then the next part of me is like, oh man, he's going to ruin that for his kid or her kid or whatever. So anyway, that's a
Yeah.
little brief background on me, but that's how I came to be in this group.
Yeah, Mike, when we're going back years, right? When
Yeah.
you started going with your kids, and maybe take us back to those first experiences that you had where you just said, "Oh, I was that dad." Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean?
For sure, my ego had a big, I'm going to move this camera over. My ego had played a big part in that. When your kid gets up to the box, or let me even go back further, like even just trying to play catch with my son early on and get your glove up. And I wasn't nice at all. I was yelling at him. And boy, there's times my son now, he's 17 years old, 6'2", almost three and 210 pounds. And I'm like, man, I'm glad he forgives me for that because he'd pound me. But I go back to that and I go, what I wanted was for my son to have a fantastic experience playing the sport. I wanted him to get a hit and make the catches and do all the stuff. And but I wanted it more than he wanted it. And I had to learn to encourage him and to not make it about me, I think was the biggest. That's my number one takeaway. I would tell people to stop trying to make it about you. It's not about you. And we do that. And I see it. I see these parents after the game and the kids are loading up in the car and the dad is just, I can't believe when that ball and you didn't have your glove down. And like, man, that was 30 minutes ago. Like these are their kids. You can't keep dwelling on that. Go, if that, okay, if you missed that grounder when he's playing shortstop, cool. Now go out, take time after when you get off work and you get home and throw grounders to him. Work on that with him, encourage him, cultivate that. But we're like mad at the kids. So that was my first step in learning that it wasn't about me. And then when I got into the coaching aspect of it, and I really started to develop that this isn't about me, this is about them, and making sure that they had a quality experience. And I tell all the kids throughout the season when I coach is that my goal, yeah, hey, it's great if we can hoist that trophy up at the end of the season. But my bigger goal is that at the end of the season, you want to sign up for the next sport. Even if it's not baseball, I love baseball, but even if they want to go play basketball, I don't ever want to be the reason why some kids like, I'm never playing sports again. Coaches are jerks. And we all have those coaches and we know people who quit playing because of those coaches. That makes sense?
It does. Yeah. Like the word that stood out to me is ego, right? So
Uh-huh.
we all have our egos, right? That's just part of our human experience. But what do you think it is, like, in as open and frankness as you want to be? Like, where do we come from, like, with our egos? Is it, do we not want to see our kids fail and we have to tell them everything when what we feel at the right moment?
I think it's two things. Our ego is we're afraid of what the other parents are going to think of us if our kid misses. And listen, my son played his last basketball game of the season, U12. So these are all 10 and 11-year-old kids. And he took 3 shots in that game. And I think the entire rest of the season, I think he took 1 shot. So yesterday he took 3 shots, nowhere near the basket. And I couldn't have been prouder of him.
Mhm.
Take the shot. You're never going to learn to hit the rim and then get the ball in the hoop if you're not taking the shots. I told him I'd buy him an ice cream if he got a foul because he was afraid to mix it up. He was afraid to get in there. He thought he was going to get in trouble if he got the foul. And I'm like, no, man, that's the rubbin's racing. That's part of the game. So I think that's the first part as parents, where we fear what the other parents will think of us if our kid isn't awesome. The other thing is I think it's a trauma response in ourselves where we remember striking out, we remember missing the shot, we remember our friends being disappointed and shaking their heads. Maybe we remember our own dad or mom sitting in the stands being unhappy with us, and we don't want our kids to ever feel that stress, that anxiety, that fear, that disappointment. And so if we can somehow make sure that they never strike out because we made sure to move them up or back in the box or told them how to swing and blah, blah, blah. Like somehow we're going to make it so they never feel that pain and that disappointment and anxiety of striking out or missing the catch or whatever it is that will save them.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, when we do that, we're robbing them of that experience. We're robbing them of something that sometimes you got to sit in the suck and go, man, that sucked, but I'm going to work harder. And I heard something a while back by a radio host that I like, a podcaster that I like, and he said, one of his things he says is he had a football coach growing up that said, don't get mad. Like when the coach is on you, don't get mad, get better. And I go, yeah. So I tell that to the kids, hey, you strike out, don't get mad. Go in the dugout, think about it. Play it back through your head. Where'd you go wrong? Get better.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, so it's I talk a lot about the building the resiliency of our kids.
Mhm.
So if I like that how you worded that, like we're robbing them of basically learning how to fail,
Yeah.
right? Because it's especially baseball, right? If our kids are hitters, right? We know how the failure rate is just so high and they're gonna fail a lot. And it may I think the trauma response is on point there with we're so afraid of our kid feeling all that fear, all that anxiety, all the worry, thinking like heaven forbid they think that they suck
Mm-hmm.
at something. And so we ourselves as parents, we're like, I can't let him feel that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want him to feel that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to like somehow we're going to save them from that. And the fact of the matter is that we send our kids to school whether it's private school, public school, whatever. So we got a minimum of 7 hours a day that they are not in our grasp, and they're going to feel they're gonna get kicked in the stomach. They're gonna get kicked in the goods sometimes. And if they're not seeing us teach and cultivate that in them, that hey, it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to strike out. But I even say, like, when I coach these kids, and I'm not a club coach, I'm not at some high level or whatever, but I see a kid coming back, they've struck out, and I tell them, pick your head up, man. You're standing in that box getting a projectile thrown at you at 55, 60 miles an hour. That takes guts. Hold your head up high, walk back in that dugout, and don't be disappointed. Just we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So we had a discussion last night as I was at this 9U game. So I have five hitting clients. They're all happen to all be on the same team, which is ironic. But there was just an individual dad who his son was pitching, and in the warm-ups, he wasn't even close to the fence during the game at all. All of a sudden, son comes in to pitch. He's right up on the fence, right here, and just barking instructions after each pitch in the warm up. And this is a 10U, and the kid looked like he knew. He didn't have the greatest like mobility and arm action and all that. So he was pretty stiff and everything. But the point is, dad had to say something after every pitch in the warm up. And I'm watching the dad, I'm watching the kid, like just observing. And the kid is just, he catches the ball, he just throws it again. And so you just see his annoyance. So Mike, you said ego, right? So I thought of that too. I'm like, I was more fascinated. I'm like, I wonder what's going on in his mind that he just has to go up there and say something after every pitch. So then that proceeded into the game, of course, of what we always hear. Hey, throw strikes, just throw
Mm-hmm.
strikes. And he probably said it 5 times within the 2 innings the kid pitched. And I always think of bench warmers where you say, hey, just throw a strike. Oh, you're a wonderful coach. I never thought of that. Right? Every kid knows that's the goal. The kid is trying to throw strikes. I don't know any kid who is not trying to do that. Let's just stop with that. That's one saying. I literally read something today online. It was like the top 5 worst sayings that parents can say, and that was number one. Just throw strikes. So we've heard that for a long time, but it's we just have to do it. Then this kid, same kid, proceeded to get up to hit. There was a left-handed pitcher throwing. Kid was throwing pretty slow. And so dad's up on the fence, like, hey, you got to get way up in the box, as far up as you can. And he's okay. He gave him like the okay, I got this. And then he's taking his practice swing, and dad didn't like the practice swing. So he's, hey, you got to focus. Like, if you're going to do it right. But it's just
Oh
like,
my
it's the
gosh.
tone. It's this energy. And this kid's 9, he's 10. He feels all this. He's leave me alone. Let me
Mhm.
play. And I don't know, I feel bad for the kid. I feel in those situations, and I happened to talk to another mom that was on the team and observing and watching, and they know because they work with me, and they're like, see what's happening here. And like he's the dad you need to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And but it's just I feel bad for the kid. I don't understand it in regards to what's going on in your brain that you think you need to go instruct your kid every single pitch. You just can't see him fail, right? I think
You
it's some story with that within that.
know, the crazy thing about that too, and again, something I tell, I have this unpopular conversation with my players is like, hey guys, no one on this field will probably ever step foot on a major league baseball field as a player, but you're all going to grow up and be fathers and husbands, and you're going to have jobs. You're going to be construction workers. You're going to be doctors, lawyers, accountants, sales reps, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And you're going to take these skills, this teamwork, and your mental part of this game with you into that. And on that note, I've made the throw strikes analogy. I'm a salesman by trade, and I laugh like their sales manager. Ron, I don't know what you do for a living, but I'm sure that you've seen in the world out there management where they're giving you coaching that is the equivalent of throw strikes. I'm a sales guy, so sales manager. You just need to make more calls. You just need to, it's a numbers game. It's the equivalent of throw strikes. I'm like, oh, is that it? So just sell more is what you're telling me. And what you're really looking for is you're looking for someone to really analyze when a kid's up there on the mound and they pitch an inning, and maybe it wasn't a highly successful inning, it was a rough inning. Yelling throw strikes at him is not helping, but coming off the mound and going, hey, you know what we got to work on is your release. You got great form, but you're releasing the ball too early, too late, on the side, whatever it is. We're going to work on that. We're going to fix that up for you, man. Next game, you're going to be throwing them right down the pocket. And instead of every single movement, so strikes, move up, move back, it's more of analyze the whole kit and caboodle there. And also, sometimes the kid just had a bad day. He's not in the game. His head's not in the game. And yell and throw strikes isn't helping. And again, so then you go into the real world with that nonsense. And those same people are taking that same mentality and throwing that same junk at everybody. So,
Mhm. Yeah, no doubt. Ron, what are your thoughts? Have you in all your years of did you coach Jonah growing up and anything like that?
Yeah, I coached 2 years very early on, though. I think he was 9 and 10 or something like that. And then I stepped aside from the coaching and I tried not to, I never yell anything out in the field, ever,
Mhm.
never. If I see something I need to talk to him about, we talk after we get home. I don't even talk on the way home anymore.
Right.
I try to, because you're not in the listening mode after a game, I don't think, anyway. So our little joke is you get a hit, I'll buy you an ice cream. He laughs. That's like
Yeah.
our little joke. But I never ever talk to him. I'll compliment him on the ride home. I'll say, boy, that was a great hit, or boy, that was a super pitching outing. But I will never criticize him on the way home. But I will keep it in the back of my mind, and I'll address it a couple days later
Right.
when the heat of the game isn't on, like right after the heat of the game. Because I don't think anybody's in listening mode after you either strike out 2, 3 times in a game, or you don't have a great pitching outing, or I just think you're not in the listening mode.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You
you
got
yeah,
your defenses are up and I'm still trying to process how bad I suck today by failure.
I don't
And
need you to force it.
they've already heard it from their coach, right? There's the team meeting afterwards, and unless coaches don't high school, they might like single you out a little bit, like. But typically, when they're trying to talk to one person, they're talking to the whole crew and trying to
right.
get their message, but it's going to that kid. But yeah, the defenses are up; they're not willing to listen, and so it just, of course, the message goes on deaf ears, right? Mike, will you say something?
I was going to say it's funny if watch pro or even college sports. There's always the post game press conference, and I've long thought I go, so you take guys that just lost the Super Bowl or even just a game, just a regular game, and it's so what happened out there. And I remember I'm an old school Utah Jazz fan, being from that area. I used to love Coach Jerry Salone because he'd say, "What happened out there?" He'd go, "We didn't score as many baskets as the other team." Next, well, like they're in no mood to, and in that same tone, here's these pro athletes getting and coaches getting a microphone shoved in front of their face. What happened out there? What happened out there? And then so they're at the high level, like they know that they're going to have to sit at that table with the microphone and answer the questions and behave themselves for 10 minutes, and then they can go in the locker room and explode. But I go, if those guys have a hard time, but how are kids supposed to? That's the post game interview. Just had a rough game, and now we're going to sit in the SUV with my pissed off dad for a 30-minute ride home while dad goes, "What happened out there? How come we didn't throw strikes?" That's it. Just, and again, go back to being adults and being in the corporate world. If I have a bad month, I don't want to. I want a manager that goes, "All right, let's pick you up and let's get you going so the next month doesn't suck." I don't want a manager that sits there and goes, "I noticed that on day 7 of the month that your phone didn't ring," or it's no, man. I don't want to hear that. I want to be encouraging and helpful.
Hmm. Yeah. And is there ever really when you're criticizing your kid, are you giving them a solution? And how do you know is your solution right? Especially say if
Right.
you don't have much playing experience, are you just going off of is it a personal thought and feeling about it? Now, and I will say this, I think every parent has good intentions. Like we're all trying to
I
do
hope so.
we're all trying to do our best. And I think it's just maybe that it's just a little bit of lack of awareness when we get a little too involved, or a lot in some cases, where I go back to that same story about this 9-year-old yesterday. One of the moms was like, "Yeah, this is actually very mild." He's been There's been instances where he's completely embarrassed the kid, right? Because loud, "I can't believe you swung at that," or "I can't believe you threw it that high." And that 9 years old, right? And you're just like, your heart's kind of going out to him. I'm like, and it's not like you just go up and say, "Hey, dude, knock it off, leave your kid alone." Then he gives you the middle finger and tells you, "I'll parent however I want to." So, though I guess those are the things that I haven't with coaching my. I've had a couple of kids that I've coached where the parent was a really big issue, right? And the parent knew it. And I've had kind of private conversations there, and they're like, "Okay, I see it." They're a little bit more aware, right? Of, okay, yeah, I see where maybe they gave me an example. I can see where I went too far here. And Mike, we talked about, because we're wrestling fans as kids growing up, right? We talked about the Ultimate Warrior, right? Share what we talked about with that.
Yeah, so Ron, I don't know how deep you got into the old school WWF, but Chad and I, it's funny, Chad and I always joke about how, even though we're the same age, we grew up in these parallel universes 450 miles apart, but with some of the same stuff. But the Ultimate Warrior he had this move he would do when he pull it down like that, blowing out these big breaths of air. And Chad one time told me, he goes, just picture me standing, if you're ever getting heated, just picture me standing me down the third baseline, just doing this to you. And I can't tell you, I come in the dugout, I got my hat ready to throw it down. And my wife also, she runs my dugout when we coach baseball. She's in there running my lineup and getting the boys ready and stuff. Other than that, we have a strict rule, no parents in the dugout. She's the only parent other than like an assistant coach or something. Because, again, they'll come in there and wreak havoc. But I'll look at her and she'll just be like shaking her head. And then I'll look down the third baseline where I see Chad's spirit when he's just reminding me. And I'm going, yeah, calm down because the kids are watching you. And what's interesting too is learning this stuff, and then you start to observe it. And boy, it helps you strategize. When I see coaches falling apart and I
Mhm.
see the other team's parents losing their mind, I can go in and I can tell my kids, I go, look, when you take the field this time, this is how I want you to conduct yourself. I want you to go out there with confidence and act like you own that field out there. It'll stress them out even more. And I don't think people realize how much that works against them when they have these big visual, quite frankly, tantrums, and they're acting like literally every pitch is the life or death situation. And man, I'll tell you something else that I remember or hearing a baseball commentator one time, and he made a comment about how there was a particular player who's was in a slump. He was only hitting like 205 or something like that, kind of in a slump. And the guy said, you know what though? They'll just keep paying him. That's a good slump to be in because he's putting his numbers out on the field and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, man, these guys, if they can hit 2.5 to 3 times for every 10 at bats, they'll just keep getting $1 million checks. I can't possibly expect more from a 9-year-old.
Mm.
So that was a big thing too. But yeah, going back to the Ultimate Warrior, just
Yeah.
learning how to really control those emotions. And I'd love to sit here and lie right to both your faces and tell you that I never ever get caught throwing my hat on the ground. That's my go-to move, hat on the ground.
That's big time. Yeah.
But I definitely have gotten better where I just hold the bill of it, like calm down.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Well, it's like,
anyway, but
it's like you can feel the buildup, right?
yeah,
A couple things have
yeah.
happened, and you're just like, as my best friend, I think you could share this. You're like, I'm always on simmer, right? And so
Yeah.
so
I
I'm
got
I'm
this
ready.
cauldron of hate always on simmer inside of me.
So I'm ready to roll. But yeah, no, it's in that kind of. I remember that conversation. It just popped in my head. Hey, we have this in common. We were huge wrestling fans. Like,
Mhm.
who could you manifest? I was like, yeah, you just use your Ultimate Warrior. And instead of, because he was doing this to like go crazy and like he's ready to put the guy over his head. And it's like, let's use this to calm down, breathe it
Yeah.
out. Like,
Another thing that I learned too is like going back, like kids are already stressed out. You got a kid on the mound, you got a kid at bat, and they're already stressed out about it as it is. They're stressed out because they know their mom and dad are watching, or maybe grandpa's come down to watch, and they don't want to mess up and they don't want to be embarrassed in front of their peers and their friends and their teammates and stuff. And if I go do a mound visit, I rarely am out there telling, I'm rarely coaching the kid up on like his form or his release. I typically walk out there and take the ball, and I'm just trying to get a reset out of him. And I'll say things like, "Hey man, what shows you like on Netflix?" And the
Mhm.
kid will look at me like, "What does that have to do with anything?" And I'm literally just trying to get their head off of anything but the game. And we'll just take 45 to 60 seconds there, just like, and it's funny because sometimes you even call you bring your infield into the mound, and I'll just start pointing at stuff, and I'll tell them, I go, listen, don't even look. I'm just pointing because the other team's watching and we want them to make them think we're got some great strategy or something. And I'll be like, have you guys seen that cartoon? Have you seen that YouTube channel? And then I go, well, hey man, now let's go get out of this inning, huh? And we go back in, and it's just a way of, it's that version of this. Just get everybody to reset, get your head out of what this hole that it's in right now, and 9 times out of 10, that quick reset it gets everybody back. And I always say, go, hey everybody, this is baseball. It ain't heart surgery. Smile. We're having fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. No, it's been fun, and I really appreciate our conversations we have in regards to, because your mind and memory is so amazing to me with all the, yeah, I remember when you told me this or that, and I'm like, I I don't remember that because
Oh
I've
man,
kind of, yeah.
I'm definitely a student of the game of coaching. Like I, I don't know, man. I believe you do what the smart people do, and if you want to be good at something, then go to somebody who already is doing that and has had success in it and talk to them. That's how you get good at something. I don't tell you what, man, the dad that's sitting in the back chirping at show strikes, and then that guy wants to come into to the entry of the dugout and go, coach, what you ought to work on is, coach, I bought this thing off YouTube or off the internet. I got this thing. You should try these drills. I just look at those guys and go, why don't you just go over there and throw strikes, man? That seems to be the only thing you can say. So I rarely listen to those kind of people. I listen to the smart people.
Love it. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. It's been cool to see, because we've had instances where we've gone to Chick-fil-A for lunch, and you'll see a parent, I think, was working at Chick-fil-A, and they're like, "Hey, Coach Mike," So, and that was from a few years ago, if I
Yeah.
believe that's correct, and just the influence and the input that you can have, even at the little league or that rec level, as a coach, as a parent, right? There's a cool feeling that kind of, I had a little bit of help in that, with that family,
Yeah.
right? I helped them a little bit, help the kid get through something, and the kid remembers me. You said you had that
Yeah.
story a few times already.
Yeah. So Ron, you have a son. His name's Jonah.
Yes.
How old is he?
He's 17. He just turned
Okay.
17.
So he's been playing since he's just a little guy, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, since he's been about 8. Yeah.
And so do you ever run into old teammates of his that have been on teams that he's played on?
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
Still
and
call-
it's you see those kids, and even if they haven't played together in a long time, but they know each other and stuff. And especially if you were any kind of positive influence on them, they will remember you, even
Mhm.
if it was 6 years ago. And it's so funny, a kid that's 10 years old to 17 years old, there's a big change in that kid, right?
Oh yeah.
And you might not recognize them, but they will always recognize you, good or bad. And when it's good, and some kid comes up and taps you on the shoulder, I had one. I was in a little convenience store, like in the middle of nowhere, Utah, on our way up to a trip to Salt Lake City. And this kid taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, coach." And I turn around. I didn't even know who the kid was. He'd grown. He's like, "It's me." And tells me his name. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Gives me a big hug. And it's one of those where you're like, man, that just made my day. And again, like Chad said, we're rec league. Like my kids are not, we're not taking trips to Cooperstown. That's not the level we're at. But the fact that I've made a positive influence on a kid just means the world to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Love it. Love it. I appreciate you guys coming on here.
For having me.
I can always count on you being here. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mike and Ron. I appreciate you guys coming on board here today, and just sharing kind of your thoughts, ideas there. We're all trying to do the best we can as parents, and we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out Am I in the way? Do I need to take a step back? Do I need to be more involved? Sometimes it's rarely more involved unless they're just the parents just not there at all. That might be a case, right, for that. But I appreciate coming on, and hopefully we'll see you next call. And take care. Have a great day.